All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, books, movies, games. We give you the weekly news of everything that has to do with Middle Earth and J.R.R. Tolkien. We've got a really neat show for you today because we're going to dive in with Peter Jackson and pull clips from this other Beatles fan podcast that he did, and where he geeks out like you haven't heard in 20 years. And I'm just pleasantly shocked and surprised that you can see and hear the enthusiasm with Peter Jackson and everything that he loves in life. I'm excited. I'm excited to dive in. We've got some quick headlines for you today. Let me see if I can bring these up. Boom. Someone tagged Bear McCreary in a Rings of Power music post because today Spotify Wrapped and Apple Music launched their 2023 personal list data. I don't know what you call it. It's just called Spotify Wrapped. It basically highlights your most listened to sounds, music, tracks on Spotify or Apple Music. And of course, a lot of people in the fandom had Howard Shore, and a lot of people had Bear McCreary's Rings of Power soundtrack. And he posted this. Thanks. Just wait till you hear what I wrote yesterday for Rings of Power. And of course, that's Rocco's Modern Life. This is a hype tweet. A hype tweet if I've ever heard or seen one. Good evening, ringers. Let me take a look at the chat room. Hey, Anonymous Girls here. Donna McJewel, Robin, Eruvandi, Pipske, Imran. New names, old names, fresh names, Facebook names, YouTube, Twitch. We're on every platform. So we're glad that you watch and tune in every week here for Torn Tuesday. We've been doing this over 11 years. It's been crazy. What else? Someone on our Discord. Again, I have to tell you guys, you have to join our Discord because that's where all the action is at. We have message boards that are still active after 20 years, but Discord is really like the hot spot for all of the juiciest gossip on Rohirrim and books and movies and games and Rings of Power. Someone found this on Amazon Prime. Stars of the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. It's a streaming 1 hour, 14-minute video on Shorts TV. And it looks like, if we scroll down, it looks like directors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 directors. So it looks like someone has collected 6 short films featuring actors in Rings of Power, including Joseph Mall and Nazanin Boniati and Peter Mulan and Morfydd Clark. So I can't believe this wasn't highlighted to us by the algorithms when we were watching Rings of Power. I don't know if this is freshly released or if this was published like a year ago when Rings of Power was coming out. Robin wants to know, anyone watched this yet? I haven't. My Fire TV, actually, I think I have a Roku at home. For some reason, I was using the remote and I couldn't start my 7-day free trial of Shorts TV to watch this. So I can't comment on how good these shorts are, but I can tell you that we highlighted this when they announced the cast, right? Before we had even seen Rings of Power. The cast is superb. They're internationally well known. They've been in some huge shows globally. And there's some of the best character actors that I've seen. And of course, Peter Milan, right there on the right, he was in Westworld. He's one of the main characters' fathers that buys Westworld and saves the company. So this is worth watching, and I wanted to bring up to your attention because we want to support our cast. In other news, Air New Zealand is having a Cyber Monday sale. Cyber Monday sale, of course. And I believe they had a Black Friday sale or two. As you know, New Zealand is like the farthest country anyone can fly to. It doesn't matter where you're flying from. It's one of the most furthest countries you can fly to, and it's always been most expensive. And today, I was just looking at it. It's Tuesday, so it's not even Cyber Monday, but the deals are still on. And you don't have to go to New Zealand, but you can. So the Cyber Monday sale for Air New Zealand, Los Angeles to Auckland. I'm in Los Angeles. $1,033 right there. $1,033. That is the cheapest I've seen. No, I take that back. I think there was an $800 deal right after the pandemic, right after lockdowns ended. $1,000 round trip, $2,600 for premium economy, and I think premium economy gives you a lay flat. I think that's what premium economy does. None of the other fancy stuff, but I think you do get a lay flat for an extra $1,500. That is a pretty good deal. Garfa Mao is in the chat room. She's a travel agent as well as a longtime volunteer coordinator, event coordinator with TheOneRing.net, and she can speak authoritatively on all things travel. And she does say Australia is further, and Malaysia and Singapore. Yeah, that's true. Daniel, Peter Jackson did one of the Beatles docs. He is doing well. We'll get into that in a minute. So check it out. I promise you, now might be the time to do your lifelong pilgrimage, or maybe your biannual pilgrimage to Middle Earth, to New Zealand, because these are great prices. And as you know, they have opposite seasons than most of us. So you're flying into New Zealand during spring into summer. So the weather's going to be wonderful. You can hiking all over, hiking to Edoras, hiking all the places. So that is that's a deal worth pursuing. So save your pennies, save your coins, and get in on this deal. And I think you can book travel. Let me see here. I'm looking Los Angeles to Auckland. Travel period between February and March. And then April, and then July through September. April through July and July through September. So it looks like it's good, except for just a few blackout dates. Probably the weekends and stuff like that. So again, Air New Zealand, some great prices to finally make that pilgrimage that you all want to do sometime in your life. This might be the time. Anonymous Girl says that's the next country on my bucket list. Yes, it should be. Aravandi says, if I start saving money now, I might be able to afford to fly to New Zealand in 20 years when I turn 50 and Gandalf comes to take me on an adventure. I mean, isn't that what retirement is? You hoard all your wealth, and then you go out on an adventure, and while you're gone, your family raids your fortune and steals your spoons. Um, that's what retirement is. The other big news this week: Amazon is doing their one of their huge annual conferences. That's Amazon AWS Invent. It's where they talk about all of their new technology that Amazon provides. And we've detailed on this show here how Amazon has incorporated some of their technologies and their AI technologies into their production pipelines, including script reviews, including storyboard generation, including some AI capabilities on audio dialogue replacement, ADR. So Amazon uses their technology for a ton of things, including their main business, shipping you holiday gifts. But today they announced Amazon Q, a new type of generative AI assistant. And if we dig a little deeper, from Alexa to chatbots, most of us are accustomed to receiving help from artificial intelligence. But a generative AI powered assistant that is specifically for work can be tailored to your business. Let's learn more about Q here. I mean, it says Q to reimagine the future of work. Amazon Q is an expert for customer building, deploying, and operating applications. But basically, there are things that Amazon's AI can do, which is stuff that we've been highlighting, which is image generation, text generation, script review, reading scripts that a human writes, and making comments or changes based on some business needs, like, hey, this needs to appeal more toward women. The AI can rewrite a script to appeal more toward women based on its data models that it's been feeding. So if Amazon wanted to feed in the entire script library of the Hallmark Channel and the CW network, they could also input Rings of Power scripts and then use the Hallmark Channel scripts to say, hey, let's rewrite some of these characters to make it appealing to a Hallmark Channel audience. Not saying that they're doing that, but I'm saying that technology is here. And this is why the writers were striking for 6 months. Because the writers wanted to ensure that their stuff doesn't get rewritten without their complete acknowledgement. And if the writer says yes, then their implicit acknowledgement. So this is one of the reasons why the writers are striking. And as we reported last week, it's a big deal. But the WGA looks like it's going to sue Amazon because Amazon is the only movie studio that is not playing ball and putting people back to work on TV shows after the strike. We reported on that last week. So there, you can. I don't need to relitigate that. I think we're going to hear more news in the coming weeks about that, which bums me out. And as we reported a month ago, we still don't have any confirmation that J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay have returned to work on the show. We don't have any confirmation that the writers have returned to work on the show. We don't have any confirmation that any of the writers or showrunners are working with the editors to make sure that what is edited is what was intended by the writers originally as far as storytelling and pacing. Writers the writers are a hugely important thing. So Amazon's making all these announcements about AI and AI generation and AI workplace and AI helpers and stuff like that. And it's a pretty scary world. And these aren't hypotheticals. I mean, this is real world stuff. Let's check in on the chat room. Daniel says Amazon has automated warehouses. They can't operate without AI. Same with their online marketplace. Right. There is a use for AI marketplaces. There's a use for AI in a lot of industries, but the creative industries, I mean, if your bread if your bread and butter, if what pays the bills is being creative, I mean, you should not be being edited by AI. Robin says, Justin, let Cliff in. Oh my God, Cliff is finally here. Always late for his own show, that man. Let's see if we can bring him in. There is the man, the myth, the legend, the man in the yellow hat with a cat instead of a monkey. I think that would be a great costume for you, actually.
Really? No sound.
Hold on, let me
Well,
see. Oh, wait. I
I,
think you just finally came in. Folks,
everything everything
let,
sounds good to me.
let's
You
let's
sound
get
good.
you sound good.
You sound
Uh
great.
let's
Yes.
well, it looks like his
I can
audio
always
levels are good on my end.
my audio levels are great. I can always exit and then come back if that might help.
Yeah, why try doing that. Oh,
Yeah,
wait.
okay,
No,
I'll be
wait.
right
Hold
back.
on. There was a oh, all right. He left. I don't know what happened there. It like clicked on late, right? I was seeing his levels. But you guys weren't hearing it. I could hear it, but you guys weren't hearing it. But I could see his levels. All right, let's. This is the joys of doing a live show, folks. Um, by the way, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the last few weeks we've been creating a YouTube event in advance, so you guys could log in and join basically find the show before we're on the air. I don't know if that has helped you guys or
Okay.
anything. Um,
Hello. Hello, everybody.
hello, hello.
I hope that the audience can hear me now. Hello, Justin. I can still hear perfectly. I see you perfectly.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be functioning just fine. Can everybody in the live chat hear? Hello, folks.
Daniel says I can hear you now, Cliff.
Thank
So
you. And there's
welcome.
Durin. Hello, hello, everybody. Good times. And thanks for being patient with me. You'll have to forgive me. as as I was saying, at 5 o'clock, my phone blew up with my employer insisting that I answer the phone. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, can't talk to you right now. It was a crazy moment. It's lovely to be back. You know, as you were just telling the news a moment ago, Justin, I was fascinated by this kind of behavior from the studio, from Prime Video. And it's just so funny to me. Right after all this business with the actor strike and the writer strike, that this is happening right now. It's very, very funny.
Right.
Um,
Totally. It's
what
crazy.
it is crazy. It's really crazy. But
But
here
speaking
we
of
are.
Amazon, I don't have a graphic for it, but today Amazon released the first look for their huge new show next year, which is not Rings of Power. It's Fallout, based on the video game. Jonathan Nolan and
Yes.
Lisa joined Jonathan Nolan from Westworld fame, and of course The Dark Knight, and a lot of his brothers Christopher Nolan movies. Jonathan Nolan is doing the pilot of Fallout, and they did a big first look feature with Vanity Fair. Why does that sound familiar? Oh, because Amazon gave Vanity Fair the first look for Rings of Power.
They sure did. They sure did.
So,
Um,
and it is 6 months from release of of Fallout. Fallout comes out in April, so it's 6 months from release. So people want to know, when will we start seeing some marketing for Rings of Power Season 2? Well, first off, things are delayed because of all the strikes.
that's a great question, though.
Right. Secondly, we don't have any confirmation that anybody, the showrunners, are back on the show, so we don't even know who's in control. And thirdly, they won't start marketing this until after Fallout. We might get a Super Bowl trailer. I would expect. I don't have any information, but I would expect a Super Bowl trailer for Rings of Power. Maybe not, because it only has a 37% completion rate in the United States. So if that many people tuned out of the show, it might not be the best thing to try to force your way back into the limelight with a Super Bowl commercial. I'm kind of torn about it. I would love to see a Super Bowl commercial for Rings of Power Season 2, but I totally understand, like, how many people would be like, "Oh, I hated that show." Like, it wouldn't generate any buzz. What do you think, Cliff?
I think the biggest and easiest thing that will generate a lot of buzz will not cost Prime Video any money at all. They should just put out a press release now, like yesterday, about all the actors that are newly cast, and stating that the showrunners are back in the saddle, and stating what production dates are happening for season 2, and saying even further what new roles are being played. At literal, no more guessing with
No more guessing.
no.
Like, these are the actors, and these are they who are playing.
Well, here's the actors and their hands and their belts. How about the entire massive marketing campaign, which was just their belt and their hands, without saying who the characters were or anything? I think they need to go outside of that and just let us do the demonstrative fanboy and fangirl behavior that we do. We're all going to do it anyways. We're going to act like fans. So let us know in a press release that costs you nothing at all who they are, who the roles are, so we know exactly the correlation between which actor and which role. And then the machinery is just going to crank itself. The fandom is going to go bonkers.
And
seriously,
and I don't know if Amazon still watches this show. They used to watch loyally before season 1,
yes.
but
yes.
if I just need to say this, Amazon, if you're watching, if you dare, in the first look Vanity Fair article or whatever press release, if you dare say this actor will be in a mystery role, we are going to tune out so hard. I'm telling you, no more mystery boxes, no more guessing games, no more hiding Sauron until the 6th episode. No more guessing games, no more who is Sauron this season. You tried it, it didn't work, it's not going to work again, and we're exhausted. So don't hide these characters and these actors. Let us be fanboys and fangirls.
There is something to be said about your suggestion that you'd like to see a big Super Bowl ad. That's 2 months away, maybe nine weeks away from that, but that costs so much money, and it won't do as much for them as letting the fans self-generate their own energy and their own talk. Let the buzz begin on our side of the camp, which is where the buzz is actually supposed to begin. You would agree with that logically, wouldn't you, my friends in the chat? Let's ask our friends in the chat. Let's just ask the audience. What is Amazon going to drop? Well, what would be most exciting for them to drop? For them to say, this is our number of episodes.
All anybody wants is a trailer at this point. But you and I both know that trailers aren't the only thing. All I have to say is if they do a first look and they say, and this exciting actor in a new surprising role, and they don't tell us who it is,
Right.
we're gonna be frustrated, and not in a good
Yeah.
way, like, and not in a fun way. It's not fun. Like, this mystery boxing is antithetical to how Tolkien
Yes.
constructs his stories. And in a
Yes.
previous episode, we showed you video of Christopher Tolkien and Priscilla Tolkien, his son and daughter, J.R.R.'s
Yes.
son and daughter, completely obliterating the concept of mystery in Middle Earth. It doesn't
Yes.
work.
We did.
It's not appropriate for this franchise. So ditch the mysteries.
I agreed. And
And so does
you know,
Christopher Tolkien.
I mean, I'm not in the business of giving a multi-billion-dollar studio advice, but if I were asked, I mean, if anybody bothered to ask me, and I should note they have not asked me, as Gimli would say, we're taking the long way round. The marketing is taking the more difficult long way around. They could just give us the basic information. Here's our episode count. Here's our list of directors. Here's our production dates. We're going to start. We're so glad that the strike has resolved. We're so glad to be back in the saddle again.
Things are
And
back
here's
on
all
track.
of our actors, recurring roles, and here's all of our new actors in new roles. Let's go. And we would chew on that. We would have meat and potatoes for months and months of free marketing, and the fans would give them the marketing for free. But that's all. No one asked me. No one asked me. Anyways.
Right. Well, the main topic today, Cliff, I've been telling you about this for the last couple of weeks, and we've
Yes,
shown what amazing work Peter Jackson's done. In fact, I believe this might have been one of the earliest shows. Do you guys remember a couple months ago when I said, "Hey, what if Peter Jackson had a secret unreleased Beatles record?"
Oh,
And
dear.
sure enough, like, I told you guys this. I told you to expect it. And Peter Jackson has recently gone on a Beatles fan podcast.
Yes, he did.
And he was there for over 3.5 hours. Just
Wow.
totally geeking out. And so
Wow.
I took note of a bunch of a bunch of clips that might be of interest, because in this, Peter Jackson talks about what he wants to do next. He talks about what just happened with the secret Beatle tapes from the Pete Best era. He talks about he showcases the technology that he's using, and you can see how much fun he's having. I thought it was most fascinating. So there's just a lot to get into. So Cliff, I just thought I'd bring up some clips, and we can talk about it, respond to it, everything like that.
Oh yes, let's do that.
It was just an amazing podcast. Let's see if we can bring this YouTube
it's
video.
really great to see Peter Jackson acting like a fanboy. He's just so enthralled with this, working with the Beatles now. It's great.
Yeah. So let's see where I'm at. So, all right, I thought we'd start. I'll skip around on this because I want you guys to hear some of this. Because look, 3.5 hours is a long time. I highly recommend the whole 3.5 hours. But this was really interesting to start talking about. Is here's Peter starting to demo the technology, and if you're still not up to speed, Peter Jackson last year won 3 Emmy Awards for cleaning up visually and in audio, cleaning up the audio of the Beatles' final concert film and recording sessions, and he won 3 Emmys for it. Well, the technology he's using has improved, and he keeps innovating with it. This is borderline AI, but it's not AI. It's called machine learning. He's using the machine to learn what different parts are, to separate each of those parts, and then he can clean up each individual part. And so let's play a clip and see if we can get there.
Which was recorded in 1965. They were using a four-track machine. So we have track 1, 2, 3, and 4. But the problem that Giles has always had is that they're not just a single instrument on each track. That they contain various different elements, and so that's why over the years, if there's been any stereo mixes of these songs, there's not much chance to do anything. Like all the drums are on one track, on track number 1. And so, if you can't put the drums in the middle, you've got to either have them on the left or right if you're trying to do a stereo. So I'll just play you the tracks, the original tracks, to give you an idea. So track number 1 of the Day Tripper tapes basically is this. It's got drums, bass, and some guitars. So it's the rhythm track. Okay, here we go.
I don't want to play too much because we might get copyrighted because it's Beatles music. But let me see if there he is explaining basically the Beatles were only working with 4 tracks. So they had to record everything on 4 different tracks. So if we go to, let's see, 244.
We're taking the easy way out now. Day Tripper, a one-way ticket, yeah. How long to find out? And I found out.
I'd vote George on that one if I had to, if I was forced to, which I'm not. But anyway, I figured it out.
You guys really just realized what happened? He took that song Day Tripper from the Beatles, and using his technology, he just pulled out someone's voice on their own.
That's wild.
George's voice out of a mixed track.
This is the third vocal track, which is the high end, because they sort of take low, middle, and high. This is the high part of it. Now there might be some silences because sometimes these vocal tracks haven't got anything on them until the moment happens. So forgive me if it's a bit quiet for a moment or two. Let's have a listen.
Incredible.
I'm fascinated by how Peter Jackson's voice has changed.
It's coming up in a minute. So this is while it's kind of but that's the 3-part harmony there, and then I'm just playing it a little bit. There's other sections, but that's I don't know. Is that Paul or George? Because they all have to be. It can't be double. They can't be double tracking because in the sense that it's all on one track. Originally one vocal track, so they must all be singing at the same time. So it's got to be one or the other. And anyway, that's Day Tripper. And then just to remind ourselves, this is the new mix that was done. Now this is just coming. I don't know. This is probably going to sound pretty horrible coming through whatever system you're listening to, but it's not the way to hear the new mixes, I can assure you. But this is the end result of Giles having control over each of those individual tracks. We don't want to give. That'll be on its own track. Now, so we've got the bass, we've got the drums, and we do give Giles that guitar thing, whether it's a leakage or from another microphone.
See if I can go back a bit. Oh yeah.
So here's track number 1, and we just work through one track at a time. So track number 1, if you
to respond to one of the chat rooms. Hang on. The question is, of the 4 tracks being recorded, one of them was George. That's what I was thinking he is showing. No. And again, this is why it's worth listening to the 3.5 hours, but we're just going to go through highlights. And again, these are Beatles songs. I know we're going to get copyrighted if we play more than like 2 seconds of Beatles. It makes a lot more sense if you hear the whole song, but we're all Beatles fans here and we know what Day Tripper sounds like.
Oh yeah.
So in this podcast, Peter explains of the 4 tracks, the first they did 4-track recording. The first track has, as he just explained, drums,
Was the rhythm track.
drums, bass guitar, and rhythm guitar.
And yep, he referred to it as the rhythm track. Yes.
Right.
No vocals. No lead
vocals.
guitar, no vocals. Okay.
Track 2 is the main vocal and main guitar.
Okay.
Track 3 is the rest of the vocals.
Okay.
It's the harmonies that you just heard. So what you just heard Peter Jackson split was a baked-in audio track of all of the vocals of the boys.
Yeah.
That he separated. And so I think in this clip right here, he's going to separate track 1, which is baked together drums, bass, and
rhythm guitar.
And rhythm guitar.
That thing that George played.
Had drums, it had bass, and it had some guitar. So let's have a listen to the drums. So we just separate the drums, get rid of the bass and guitar, and just have the drums by themselves. Here we go.
He took out the guitar. He took out the bass guitar. Boom, da 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 down, down, down. It's gone.
Wow.
It's gone.
This is the kind of separation of audio sounds they never had before.
No one's ever been able to do this. This is magic technology.
And then the bass pulls bass all by itself. So we just pull the bass out of the and away, and you don't hear drums anymore or guitar.
Oh, wow. So that is really amazing to be able to separate these things now,
and
it allows them to do audio repair
track as well. So let's have a listen to those. So this is just guitars with no drums and no bass.
So you can hear that the microphone was set up in the room to capture the drums and the bass together, but it's getting spillover of the guitar.
That sounds a bit like guitar leakage to me. That doesn't sound like guitars. That might be leaking from another track. It's marked as guitar. So sorry, I might have just had that wrong. But anyway, I mean, whatever. We don't want to give. That'll be on its own track. Now, so we've got the bass, we've got the drums, and we do give Giles that guitar thing, whether it's a leakage or from another microphone or the real thing. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because one of the things we've developed with Mal is the ability to split Ringo's drum kit into its different components. Like he plays, a drum kit, and there's different drums that he plays. Now, obviously, Ringo's playing them, as a set. That's what he does. So he never plays like I'm going to play it to you now. But in case Giles wants to, make the drum kit a little, just spread it around a little bit, we give him that option. I don't think this is necessarily that useful, but in some respects, we developed this just for our own use for the software anyway. So whether or not Giles chooses to use it is up to him. So let's start. We've got the kick drum, and here we go. Here's the kick drum.
Cliff, he's separating the individual drums.
And the snare drum.
How amazing to be able to do that. I mean, wow.
Lincoln in the chat room is freaking
toms.
out.
There's not many toms, but I mean, Ringo does that 2 or 3 times in a song, and that's it. That's the only tom. So there's just that little flurry of toms. Hi-hats. In the mix, Giles can obviously lift any of these up, just individually raise the volume of them without affecting anything else if he so chooses. And finally, there's the cymbals. Again, like the toms, there's not much cymbal action in the song, but there's just a couple of hits. This is one of them that you'll hear. In this particular song, that only happens a couple of times, and that's your cymbals. So that's, we can separate all the drums into its components now, in case that is useful. I mean, it's certainly going to be useful for us in the sense of using the software for other things outside of this, going forward. But whether Giles finds it useful at all, I have no idea.
Let's pause there.
Okay,
Cliff,
I just heard him say that.
You just
I
heard him say that.
Whether he finds it useful or not, I have no idea. I can immediately see how useful this is. I can instantly see how useful and all the different applications that this could be useful for, especially with them trying to save sound recordings from the sense of music conservatorship and conserving and repairing old damaged recordings. This is amazing stuff, beyond amazing. But look at how humble, look at the humility that Peter Jackson is actually bringing to it, saying, I'm not sure if they'll find this useful or not, but holy cow, this is nuts.
Just said,
you
just saw him say that he's got other uses in mind. You just
other uses in mind.
Other uses in mind. Cliff, with this technology,
what could that mean?
Cliff, it means that Peter Jackson has the technology to extract the original recordings of the Indiana Jones theme out of the Indiana Jones movie.
Wow. Well, I'm sure that music exists in complete separate recording masters for the music. I'm sure.
Well, but imagine the history of film now.
Imagine other lost media or things that could be repaired. Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm not just thinking the music industry. Peter already has the visual part down with Weta Digital and the Emmy-winning team from the Beatles documentary. But he is now doing audio thing. Again, so now that you guys kind of have wrapped your heads around what he's doing, let's see what else he's got.
I don't know whether he uses the separated drums that much, to be completely honest. So what we'll look at now is track number 2. And that was basically we had some guitar. It had a bunch of spill, like...
I don't know if I want to play the
guitar. We have tracks for spill, which I won't bother playing. It's just the sort of the off-mic stuff. And then this is the main instrument on track number 2, which is a guitar.
I'm going to skip.
I know that three of the Beatles come in on the Day Tripper part. It's a 3-part harmony, but there's 2 for a little bit of time here, and then the third one. But this is B, and see if you can figure out which one this is. Sounds like Paul one moment, and then George another moment.
Again, I'm going to play this again. This is from one baked in track. This is a 60 or 70-year-old tape where these 2 voices were sitting at a microphone, one microphone together. There's no separating that. They are baked together from one microphone. And look what Peter can do.
We're taking the easy way out. We're taking the easy way out now. Take river, a one-way ticket, yeah. So long to find out. When I found out.
I'd vote George if I had to.
Again, that is from a baked together track. With
and this is the third. This is the third vocal track, which is the high end, because they sort of take low, middle, and high. This is the high part of it. Now there might be some silences because sometimes these vocal tracks haven't got anything on them until the moment happens.
So the chat room is picking up on what I'm freaking out about, Cliff, which is Peter has a technology that nobody else has.
Yes.
And it is unreal. So now that you understand,
it really is. It is kind of bonkers now that I'm seeing this up close.
So now let's skip to a little bit more context. Let's get out of the demo, and let's go to 135.
court battle or something. And you know, we've now got the copyright, we've got the rights of the Star Club performance, but we don't actually have the original tapes. I said, oh, okay. And so that's when it was a case of let's go through all the bootlegs that are around. And again, Mel doesn't like treat. I know that a lot of people have cleaned up Star Club tapes and they've done you know, filtration and stereo and all that stuff. But Mel doesn't like any of that. Mel gets very annoyed with that sort of stuff. So we want to try. We want to hear the best original sounding recording before all that stuff's done. And it's sort of hard to find. You listen to something even from 1970s, and you don't know what have they done to it. What is real. So anyway, cut a long story short, we so during this we haven't done any work on them since then. But however, things have been happening. So while in the last year or so, while we were working on, I got Claire Olsen, producers. You know, she's very good at doing this sort of thing. She said, well, why don't we just try to track down the original tapes? Who's got them? And I said, I don't know. I don't actually know who's got them. But anyway, so she's a good detective. So she set out. And then a few months, a month or two later, she said, "Oh, I had a really good chat with this guy in Florida called Larry Grossberg, and he's got the Star Club tapes." I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." Because the idea was, contact the person who's got them and just ask if we can get a digital copy of the tape of the original tapes, because then that gives us our best chance to do something with them. And she said, "Well, Larry's 78 years old, and he's really, he thinks he's done his dash with the Star Club. And to be honest, he can't do anything with them because Apple have now got the rights to it." And he said, and he'd be open if you want to buy the tapes of him. He'd be open to sell them. So for what it was a fairly reasonable price, Larry agreed to sell them to me. So we've actually just bought the Star Club tapes now. We got the original tapes. So
he calls those the Star Club tapes.
So this is a new project separate from what Peter just did. I should have told this story before we played the clip. There are for Beatles fans, there are infamous bootlegs from 1962 called the Star Club tapes. These are tapes.
All right, this is very important context. I haven't even heard about this. Tell me more. Wow.
Before the Beatles hit it big, they played in Germany for 3 summers. And on the last summer, before they signed a record contract and before they blew up, the Beatles had Pete Best for the first part of the summer, and then Ringo Starr replaced him later on that summer.
That's right.
An engineer in Germany on the 3rd summer of their residency decided to just put up a cheap little tape recorder, a 1960s tape recorder.
Oh, wow.
And recorded two of the Beatles performances before they broke big.
Okay.
And most of the songs that the Beatles played were covers of popular things, because that's what a cover, that's what bands do. They play popular songs to get the club going. So these are called the Star Club tapes. It's a pair of tapes of the Beatles performing live before they were big.
Okay, wild. How come I never knew about this?
They after the Beatles broke up, the guy that owned the tapes sold them, and it was released as a limited edition. It was released, right, as bootleg Beatles songs from early in their career. In I think 1977 or 1980, the Beatles sued the owner of the tapes. Yeah. And it was a huge long court battle because according to international law, if you did the recording and you have possession of the tapes, possession is 9/10 of the law.
That's true. Yes.
So, so in that lawsuit, the Beatles won rights, but they did not win the tapes.
Oh,
the Beatles
I see.
Won rights to the music that they played, but they did not win possession of the tapes. So those bootlegs were pulled off the market, and it was considered a fan thing, the lost Star Club tapes. So the tapes ended up being sold 1 or 2 more times until Peter Jackson here this year was like, hey, I'm rich. Let's find the tapes and see if I can buy them. And sure enough, Peter's assistant found a 78-year-old man, as he just told in that story. He found a 78-year-old man in Florida who has possession of the original tapes, the very first recordings ever of the Beatles together on tape. And Peter bought it off him with his Lord of the Rings millions.
Oh, no. Okay, now it's all come together full circle. Now I get it.
So now
Jeez.
Peter doesn't...
Wow.
So Peter doesn't just have one song to unreleased Beatles song. Cliff, Peter just confirmed he has an entire 2 tapes worth, 2 albums worth of unreleased Beatles music that he is currently digitizing and cleaning up with that technology.
Gosh, that's amazing. I didn't even know he had gotten his hands on that. That's just kind of
tapes.
bonkers to me.
He called Paul McCartney and like, I own the tapes. I'm going to tinker with them. And Paul's like, yeah, let us know when you have something worth releasing. Paul McCartney told Peter Jackson, let us know.
Call me when you have something worth releasing. Let us know how it goes.
Yep.
That's bonkers to me. But wow. I mean, wow.
So
I can't imagine.
Peter is the current owner of the lost Beatles tapes, the very first recordings from 1962 Germany.
I'm amazed. I'm really amazed at this.
So
do you think that
Peter has 2 new albums, 2 new Beatles albums on deck?
I can't. You know what? This means that he's probably not going to be working on any Rings of Power stuff anytime soon.
Well,
we opined about that last week. Yes,
that's the purpose of this conversation. Let's continue on. Let's go to 52.
Yes,
yes. I haven't heard of any release plans for it.
Something to look forward to. Are you now totally finished with Get Back, or is there a possibility of a longer version still?
Well, I'm never finished with Get Back in my mind, because I think there should be a longer version. So so in my mind, it's a battle that we haven't won, and we'll still keep sort of plugging away at. So I never give up, and I never say never. So, but no, there's no hard plan. Nobody said anything about extended cuts or anything. I just don't. I don't know.
And this would still be a Disney call, right?
Well, it has to be. I mean, Apple obviously have to agree in the sense that to allow.
Peter has an extended cut of Get Back, the Emmy-winning Get Back. He has an extended cut ready
that he wants to do, an extended cut
ready to go.
Why is this so bonkers? That
Paul does that, and it sort of pissed me off a bit, but But then as we were finishing it off, it was and so an extended cut would mean that there would be an extended cut on streaming. I mean, it's not to say you can't do an extended cut. It doesn't have to be an extended version would go onto the streaming. That's where that could be. But anyway, as it was getting as I can't remember what point it was sort of as it was getting finished or made. I mean, I talked to Apple and they said, are you happy about this DVD thing? No, they're not, because Beatle fans like to have things on their shelf. They like to have collections of stuff. And I said, surely this is not. And they said, no, we're not particularly happy. So Apple made one last sort of put pressure on Disney, and they basically said we would really want a Blu-ray and DVD release of Get Back. And this was against the policy. I mean, Disney had a policy in place, no, that was no longer going to happen. And so Disney agreed. They agreed. Sort of, I wouldn't say they agreed in a reluctant way, but they kind of, agreed out of respect for Apple that they would make an exception and they would release. But of course, once you're into that position where they're agreeing sort of in a slightly begrudging way, there's no way they're going to spend any more money on filling up the DVD with all sorts of nice extras and everything else, because that's going to cost them money. And they don't even want to put a DVD out in the first place. But why would they want to make it even more expensive and add stuff to it? So when they don't even tell. I mean, the reason why they don't want to is they don't think they get sold. They don't think people buy them anymore. And I was saying to, well, there are, it might be true. I don't know. It might be true of a film, but that Beatle fans are sort of a community unto themselves, and a lot of Beatle fans are going to buy it. So there is actually a market that Disney might not be thinking about. And so anyway, so that was the idea. That was what happened. I mean, it was Disney, agreeing against their corporate policy to make an exception, release a Blu-ray and DVD of Get Back because Apple had requested it, especially. But there was no appetite for it to be expanded. And then what happened is they what always happens is that they make they strike a DVD or whatever the term is called. They make the DVD copy and they send it to us for approval. I mean, this has happened all the other films I've done, and the audio track it comes to us, sign off on it, make sure you're happy, and then we'll push the next thing on. So this thing arrives. We get sent this thing to approve. And it's no good. I mean, the subtitles had all been replaced with big fat subtitles. They'd taken our ones away, and it looked awful. And they also had I don't know. There's something else that happened to the picture that was they just they hadn't done it was a really good job. The audio was there was a real problem in the 7.1 channel. There was some really distortion. I mean, there was an actual a physical problem, and Apple heard it and says there's no way this can come out. And so we go, we go to Disney and say, oh, well, hang on, we're going to have to fix this. And it's only then that we get told that they've made 40,000 copies that are on their way to stores. And it was like, well, hang on, you sent this to us for approval, and you've already, it was just like, it was a bit frustrating. And so anyway, they got recalled. This was a whole thing that was happening. You remember, I'm sure. They got recalled because there was, it wasn't just a vanity thing of us running. It was actually some serious issues with it that needed fixing, and so they had to. So not only had they been reluctantly agreed to make the release of DVD and Blu-ray, they made 40,000 of them. Then they got told to recall them back again. So it was a grim situation, and they did, and then we had to fix it and fix all the problems for them, and we had to get another one to check, make sure that was okay, and then give it to them. And then at that point, it sort of came out, and I think any enthusiasm that Disney had to really do much with the release had pretty much evaporated by that point. I mean,
Peter Jackson and the Beatles got the only allowance from everything on Disney Plus. The blanket rule was it's on Disney Plus, it's never coming on DVD. And the Beatles and Peter Jackson are the only ones that got an allowance to release Get Back on DVD.
I must admit, there's a couple of exceptions to that. And the only two exceptions I can think of is the years-long 4K restoration that the animation department did on both Snow White and Cinderella. And they released 4K UHD, brand new, heavy animation restorations.
That's different than
that's the only exception.
Disney Plus exclusive.
You're right. That is absolutely separate from, were there balloons blowing up on my Zoom screen? There's a bunch of balloons that just flew up in my screen.
Cliff,
I didn't know why that happened.
I don't know why that happened.
I get it. You're right. You're talking about original Disney Plus programming. I get that. Okay.
Cliff, when you heard the brand new Beatles song "Now and Then" with Peter Jackson's cleaned up vocals, my first reaction was, I need the Real Love and Free as a Bird to get the same treatment, because
those were from Anthology. Those are the first. Those are the additional brand new songs. Yes, that's right.
Well,
from Anthology.
Peter confirms right here.
Piano playing. He was not doing that as recording. It was a composing session. We were playing around. So absolutely get rid of the piano. And Paul. I think they did record piano in the '95 for those songs. This has gone top of John's. But anyway, if you can get that, then if my suspicion is right, and they had to degenerate George and Paul, their recording, and they had to deliberately damage and deteriorate that in order to bring it down to John's level. And then Free as a Bird, it sounds like they've distorted Paul and George slightly to make it sound a bit fuzzy, to make it sound more like John. I think if you can get John clean, you can get rid of all that stuff that they've done and you can go back to the original tracks of George and Paul, and you could just reinvent those two songs. I mean, they'd still be the same, and it's still sort of basically the same. But I think those tracks would just come to life in a way that they've never been given the chance to, personally. So anyway, that's my theory, and that's what I want to do, because I think that's the Beatles shouldn't have those two songs sitting there in the state they are. If the technology exists to clean them, then obviously they owe it to John. If nothing else, they owe it to John to do it. So I've told this to Apple, everyone. I've told it to Paul. I said to Paul, look, we've got to do it. And so they're all on board with the idea that one day, but there's no plan. I mean, there's no, like, we're not starting on Free as a Bird tomorrow. We don't, there's no talk of us doing Free as a Bird, but they all know that it should be done at some point, and they don't just agree. None of them said, oh no, leave it the way it is. But I think it's just they have to work out their own internal thing about what their release schedule is, what they want to do with these songs. I mean, they generally, the way that Apple works is they don't generally do something unless they have a reason for it. So in other words, if a reason exists that they can figure out to re-release Free as a Bird and Real Love in a sort of cleaned up fashion, then they'll come to us and say, can you do those songs? They're not really into doing things for the sake of doing things and putting them on a shelf, sort of thing.
Well, there you go.
Wow. So he's really ready for Paul McCartney to call him at any time and say, let's do this. Wow. That's kind of exciting. Do you think that we could have ever imagined, when we were getting to know Peter Jackson years ago, working on Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies, do you think that we could have ever imagined his career would take this remarkable trajectory to where he is now, working hand in hand with the surviving Beatles and doing audio restoration?
I don't think he.
No, I bet you none of us could have thought of this.
All right,
none of us.
So to recap what we've seen so far, Peter Jackson has a blessing from Paul to redo Free as a Bird and Real Love. He has the basement tapes. He has the long lost tapes from Germany, the Star Club tapes that he's cleaning up now, and he's supposed to call Paul when there's something worth releasing. He's got an extended edition of the Emmy-winning Get Back documentary, including a full-length commentary track of him talking about everything in the movie. He had a full-length commentary track with an extended cut of Get Back.
Wow.
So that's 3 Beatles things that Peter has going on, and I think that this is the clip where they ask, "Well, what are you going to do next?"
They should include the original in the set, because somebody buying it who doesn't really know any better could very well pick up the box set, and they're getting a whole new, different look from what they were familiar with. Have the original there, put the new mixes in there as well, and then you have a complete.
I thought there was 1 or 2 of these box sets where they have done it. Have they done it at all?
It's been done by other bands, and it wasn't done with the Beatles.
Oh, so there's not. They haven't done it on the Pepper one or the Abbey Road one or anything. They didn't put the originals in.
No, just the new mixes. You want the original, you go back to the older CDs or even further back to the vinyl.
I guess the practical question is, you got the box set on your shelf and you can have the original right next to it, so it's actually not a problem in actual fact. But it would be nice to have it in the box set
within the same set, right?
Yeah, and I guess there's occasionally people are going to buy a box set and they don't own the original one, so that's sort of No, look, I mean, if it was up to me, I would, which is not. I'd always put the original in as a disc, because at least it makes it sort of a historical thing. That makes it, gives people a choice and stuff. But really, the reality is people do have the choice. they do have CDs and vinyl. It's like they are still there. They just instead of all being one box, they have to be next door to each other on the shelf, and two different things. But hey, well.
You know, for
When it
people
comes to
who
remixes,
want it to sound the way it sounded in the 60s, they should package these sets with one of these little crappy transistor radios that we used to listen to in the 60s and see how everyone likes that.
That's right. Yeah.
well, that's kind of what Chris Thomas was saying.
In a way.
For recording their music, they were thinking about what would it sound like on the radio.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And Jeff Emmerich was not in
Wow.
love with remixes either. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Beatles fans
Yeah.
all over the world have different opinions about this, and you won't be able
Yeah.
to please everybody. So
Well, it's not at the end of the day, I think that's, I think people have to not think about it being pleasing people. I think you're giving people choices, and like anybody, we're all entitled to have our choice. We all should be sort of adult enough, mature enough to say, hey, you're giving me choices, and guess what? I have my own choice, and I'm choosing this. It's not, it's not actually, which is fine, and that's what, that's all it is. It's not actually about pleasing or displeasing anybody. I mean, look, I realize people like talking about, did they like it? Do they listen to it? Is it good? Is it bad? They like to discuss, as any fan does, you like to just discuss what you hear. But at the end, the bottom line is that we're capable of enough of having different versions on a shelf, and the one we want to hear is the one we pull out and play it.
Right.
That's a perfect. Surely we're all mature enough to be able to do that without, it doesn't have to be a competitive thing. I mean, it's one thing of having a fun discussion about what they changed and how it sounds, all that sort of stuff. But I don't think it's really. It doesn't have to be the hard line of this shouldn't happen, or these are terrible, or it's a bad idea. I mean, it doesn't. That takes it a bit too far, in my opinion, because there is literally no point to that. It's a pointless thing. It was why go there?
So, Peter, while all of us would probably be perfectly happy if you spent the rest of your life just doing Beatles stuff, presumably you have other projects, and what have you got in the works?
Well, we have always written, have scripts bubbling away. I mean, we have a couple of screenplays that we work on that not Beatles stuff, but but on the other hand, and I know, and sorry. And I don't know whether. I mean, the thing with Apple when you're working for them is they don't. There's no sort of 5-year plan. It's not like, now, Peter, we'd like you to do some more stuff, and next year this, and the year after we only do. I mean, there's none of those conversations. It's like you just get a phone call one day out of the blue, and you do some and that. So I mean, I look. I at the moment we're working on well, I mean, I'm assuming some more separations will come down the line over the next months and years. But for us to do, man, I mean, I'm assuming. Well, I mean, hopefully they'll use Mal to work their way through their entire catalog one way or the other. I mean, because as a fan, it would be cool. So I'm going to be involved in that way, and if they want me to do anything else, then they can certainly talk to me. And in the meantime, we're just working on scripts. I mean, we're taking, we've got no hurry. I mean, it takes a year or two to develop a script. We've got some ideas, but I don't think you're going to see me making a movie for the next year or so. Yeah, which is fine. It's fine. It's all good. I mean, because it's about time to have a little break, and just when it's not a break. You're actually just working up your ideas for whatever's next. But
there it is. Peter Jackson saying, "Don't expect me to direct anything."
Yep,
for
right
at least
there.
a year or so.
Right there. Exactly what he's saying. He wants to be on call for Sir Paul McCartney, who might call and say, "Let's work out all these new things." So I get it, but man, I would never have thought a film director of such power and accomplishment, a film director like Peter Jackson, is now willingly walking away from his #1 career as a filmmaker to work in a decidedly different area of media.
I mean, he just said it. As a fan, I want this.
Fascinating.
He literally just said, as a fan, this would be cool. And if they want to call me, call me. Like, he's
Yes.
a fan.
Yes.
But there you have Peter Jackson is not afraid to return to directing. You just have it on here that the directing itch is potentially being scratched, but a year or two down the line. He just said that. You won't see me directing for another year or two.
Wow. You know what? We are breaking this news, I think, more than anybody else. I think we're breaking the news now. So if anybody comes up with a rumor or question or makes
what Warner Brothers is doing,
if anybody makes an assertion and they assert, hey, we're going to get Peter Jackson on board, blah, 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 blah.
And the writer's
They're
strike
not.
has been happening and
They're
things. I don't know. Let's see what else he says.
And it's maybe Apple will phone up and maybe they won't. It's just fine either
Wow.
way. It's been fun. I mean, the thing that I say about Apple, and I've said it to them too, is that I've done a lot of work with studios. You sort of work, you make films for a studio because you don't pay for it yourself; that somebody else pays for it, and so you're dealing with a corporation or a studio, and you all the way through the process of development, shooting of it, they release, and so you're just dealing with people who have who come from a particular place, and most of the time you deal with really nice people. I mean, Warner Brothers and Universal and whoever else we've been making films with. There's good people there, but at the end of the day, it's a corporation with shareholders, and there's just this feeling that there's a you've got a sort of a big entity out there unknown. But I love working for Apple because they're tiny. They're really tiny. It is literally comes down to those four voices. Paul and Ringo and Olivia.
He just said he
Wow.
loved working with Warner Brothers. And
Wow.
there's some good people there. So don't discount Peter out of the Lord of the Rings conversation. He is on camera saying,
okay,
Warner Brothers, good people are there.
Indeed. Okay.
All right. Let's see. I think
this
there's
is
one more clip. Let's see. 1, 2.
That's kind of exciting.
Let's see where this goes.
40 interviews on there, so please go to that. Ken Michaels Radio. And
where were we?
The red and blue being the introduction and the sort of appetite the appetite cleanser, whatever they call it. They from that point on it was a process of learning yourself, discovering yourself.
All right. Well, thank you.
I think that was it.
Wow.
So there you have it. Peter Jackson has confirmed that there are good people at Warner Brothers. He previously has stated to the press that Warner Brothers has been keeping him in the loop with Embracer and the rights and everything like that, and they are having
Intriguing.
fruitful discussions. That was
Really?
months and months ago. But here's Peter Jackson not saying he's out of Lord of the Rings. In fact, there's Peter Jackson saying there are good people at Warner Brothers, and you won't see me directing for another 1 or 2 more years. Which is right in the good timeline of getting a good script together for another Lord of the Rings jaunt. Cliff,
do you know what this means?
What?
My energy is really peaked at this. My instinct is telling me that he's so far off the radar with the Rings of Power and what Amazon Prime is developing that Peter isn't going to walk anywhere near it at all. Period.
Not Rings of
He's
Power,
just not going to go near it.
Warner Brothers.
But let's give more context. And I know that we have a faithful audience who is with us regularly, but for those who don't always grasp every bit of Tolkien licensing and contract news, let's get a tiny little bit into the weeds here and remind everyone that there's a separate legal agreement between the Embracer Group doing an extension with Warner Brothers to do other New Line Cinema, Warner Brothers-based Middle-earth films, motion picture films, because the television license is over here. Separate from Warner Brothers, television license is over here with Prime Video doing Rings of Power. So what Peter Jackson just said, and everything we're talking about in this vein right now, is not the television half. We're talking about the feature movies, the feature films that Warner Brothers still has up their sleeves. And that includes immediately the next release will be in December of 2024, the Japanese anime feature film of The War of the Rohirrim. And that is under the Lord of the Rings, New Line Cinema, Warner Brothers label. Now that we've got our audience up to speed, I'm just going to lean back into what Peter Jackson just said. And he's saying, I'm talking to the wonderful folks at Warner Brothers, but that is not to be misconstrued that he might bounce over and work on Prime Video. Not at all. That's not to be misconstrued.
I think he wants to make movies. I think that he's got an extended edition cut that Disney Plus doesn't want to release. He has an
Wow.
extended edition of Get Back that Disney Plus doesn't want to release yet. He's done a commentary track on Get Back, which Disney doesn't want to release. He's got the
Wow.
Star Club tapes. He's got 2 album Star Club tapes that Paul is like, call us when it's ready. He's asking for the original tapes on Free as a Bird and Real Love, the 1995 songs. Cliff, so you heard his enthusiasm for everything Beatles. You can tell that the fact that he sat down with these guys for nearly 4 hours, he is a true Beatles fan. As a fan, he wants to create the things that other fans would want because he is such a fan. So, in your opinion, now that you've heard and seen what he's doing, what he's capable of, and what the technology is, if you're Peter Jackson, do you even want to play in Middle Earth and go through that grind when you're like unlocking the history of pop music?
Wow.
He's
I
changing.
tell you what.
The technology is mind-blowing. I'm glad this episode could blow some minds because
absolutely. Well, he's
let's
also
hear it in the chat. What do you guys think? You've heard the tapes. You were here with Cliff, discovering it alongside with Cliff. Do you think Peter Jackson, is his heart in Middle Earth? Is his heart in Beatlemania? Does he have room for both? Do you see the excitement he has in his, he's what, 68 now? You can hear it in his voice. He's not getting any younger. Ridley Scott's still making movies at 86. Clint Eastwood's still making movies at 92. We probably still have another good 25 years of movies to get out of Peter Jackson. So, what does the chat room think? Where is his heart right now? And do you want to see him manage Middle Earth movies like Kevin Feige does for Marvel?
Wheatbix says, I'm seeing the same signs, Justin. PJ's Middle Earth content is incoming. He's pretty much telling the true fans that. Intriguing. Well, he is habitual that way. Instead of saying it outright, Peter has always let it go with, yeah, we're talking, and that's going to be my yes. I'm talking with the right people. This is going to be my yes.
The fact that he had nice things to say about Warner Brothers without being prompted.
Well, yeah, that's a nice surprise, isn't it?
Without being prompted. They didn't ask him about Lord of the Rings. They didn't ask him, hey, what are you doing for movies? They just said, what are you doing next? And he's like, well, there's some good people, Warner Brothers, and, we got a couple scripts that we're working on. A couple scripts.
Yeah.
Peter is 62. Thanks for the correction. Peter is 62.
Thank you, Dominic.
Yeah, yes. He was 40 when they were filming Lord of the Rings.
You know what I think is interesting? It's what he didn't mention. He didn't mention anything related to anything else. So how about that? He didn't mention, we're going to do a sequel to any other project I've done. He didn't mention anything related with his work with Universal Studios, which he's done. And he's just straight leaned into, we're talking to Warner Brothers. So that is a big sign, perhaps. A big sign.
But he is as energetic as he's ever been. And you heard the clip, Cliff, where he said, whether the Beatles want me to do this or not, there are other uses for this technology.
Yes, he did say that. Oh my goodness.
Cliff, do you think Peter Jackson has an hour's worth of cut footage of Christopher Lee as Saruman?
Oh my gosh, I'm dying here. I want to. Do you know what?
Cliff, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, now I know what you're saying. Now I know exactly what you're saying.
Peter has the technology to extract Christopher Lee and his voice and make his voice pristine from outtakes.
Wow.
And combine that with the AI technologies that everybody's creating.
Yeah.
I think Peter Jackson could pull it off. Christopher Lee returns as Saruman, and I trust Peter. I trust this man to do that.
Makes you wonder.
You
There's a
heard
lot
the
of possibilities here.
Yes, you
With-
heard the technology.
With this technology, it could be used for film or for old television restoration. What if they get a chance to recover some of the lost Doctor Who tapes that the BBC destroyed, or any of that cool stuff?
Right.
Wow, I'm starting to wonder.
And
hello, Matt, Nerd of the Rings. Nice to have Matt, Nerd of the Rings, joining us here.
Yeah, sorry, I should take off that video. So anyway,
live show.
Go check out. We linked it on the YouTube video, but I highly recommend if you've got 3.5 hours.
Okay.
That was just a taste of Peter geeking out for 3.5 hours.
Wow!
The channel only has 3,000 subs.
That's
3,000
really interesting.
subs.
Really interesting stuff.
The channel is called
Wow.
Things We Said Today. That's the name of the channel. Things We Said Today, a Beatles radio show. So check out the link in the description on our YouTube channel for this video to link to the Peter Jackson 3.5 hour podcast. It's also available in audio only. That's how I first listened to it on iTunes, on podcasts. So I listened to it as a podcast without the video. And I felt like it was more personal because there's Peter Jackson in my headphones and it just sounded so good. It sounded so neat. You could understand everything that Peter was saying. But if you like to enjoy stuff with captions on and everything like that, you can watch it on YouTube. So look for the podcast, Things We Said Today. Before I let you go, I got 2 kind of big pieces of news, Cliff.
Okay, let's have it.
This is really exciting. Folks, James Cameron has announced he has applied to be a New Zealand citizen. And he expects to become a New Zealand citizen next year. He says, I love being a Wellingtonian. James Cameron says filmmaking is so vital to the economy of New Zealand. And he's like, I've never worked in a country or a city with a more passionate film community than New Zealand. And he's willing to give it all up. He's willing to give up his American citizenship, or maybe dual citizenship. I don't know how that works. Because the film business is so good and so vital to the New Zealand identity that he's committing his whole personal being, and he's applied to be a citizen of New Zealand. That's James Cameron committing to New Zealand. That's huge. And secondly,
why am I not surprised? So many of the hardworking American members of the film crew, after working on the Rings trilogy, they became expatriates. They expatriated and became New Zealand citizens and bought property there. That happened to Gino Acevedo and a lot of other people who worked at Weta and on Rings. Yeah.
And for all the gamers out there, I did not know this, but check this out. The same day that I found out this news from James Cameron becoming a New Zealand citizen, Gabe Newell, the founder of Valve, the creator of Steam and Counter-Strike and Half-Life and the Steam Deck and everything gaming, and the #1 gaming platform on PC, Gabe Newell, has applied to become a citizen of New Zealand himself, and he's been running Valve from New Zealand because he moved there in 2021 and has fallen in love with the country, and now he's applying to be a citizen as well. So Gabe Newell, the founder of Valve, and James Cameron have both applied to be citizens of New Zealand. And the reason I wanted to bring this up at the end of the show today, Cliff, is Gabe Newell is not only a creative person, he's a smart businessman who found a way to own his creative output on his own financial terms And Gabe Newell does not report to anybody when it comes to Valve and Steam. And that's why Steam is the best PC gaming platform out there. Secondly, James Cameron found a way to make Avatar movies on his own terms, partially with his own money, with full creative control, full distribution control, and no production schedule. He releases them when he's ready. James Cameron figured out how to have total control of his creative output without bosses telling him what to do. And guess who James Cameron uses for all his visual effects on the Avatar films? Weta. Who owned Weta? Peter Jackson.
Oh, that's right.
So, guys, when we talk about the future of Lord of the Rings movies, one of Peter's best friends is now James Cameron, who figured out how to make tentpole studio movies on his own terms with total creative control. It is not outside the boundaries of imagination that Peter is going to Warner Brothers with the same deal. If Peter Jackson goes to Warner Brothers and says, "Give me the James Cameron deal. I will make you billions upon billions, but you got to give me the James Cameron Avatar deal."
Okay. Wow.
Does Warner Brothers do that deal?
Wow.
Imagine.
Wow. Hold on.
Imagine James Cameron doing Avatar 3, 4, and 5 next to Peter Jackson at the next soundstage doing the next 3 Lord of the Rings movies, and they're just back and forth, and Peter Jackson, James Cameron just like, "Hey, check out this technology. Hey, check this out. Hey, we should use that over here. Oh yeah, you should do that over there."
Boy, that would be so super cool.
Guys, I think we are closer than ever to Peter Jackson.
Wow.
You heard it on the podcast today. I think we're closer than ever with Big Jim, Gabe Newell, and now what we heard Peter Jackson say. I think Warner Brothers should give Peter Jackson the James Cameron deal and just let Peter have total creative control of Middle-earth. And that's my final thought. Cliff, what do you think?
I agree with that. What could go wrong with that? However, as we have witnessed in all the news headlines over the past few months, Warner Brothers and that ding-dong doo-doo head and their CEO, David Zaslav, are the worst at chopping off their own feet, chopping off their own legs, and cutting off their own noses to spite their own face and their own selves. As a studio, they're mismanaging Warner Brothers to an egregious degree, and they've been selling off for tax write-off purposes. They've been selling large chunks of media holdings that Warner Brothers has, right on down to the selling of the song from Casablanca that they play over the opening logo. I mean, as time goes by, it's kind of ridiculous the way that Warner Brothers is in the midst of some of the most disgusting mismanagement of a major studio that we've seen in a long time. So I hold a very dim view of what they're doing, but with all the money they made with Barbie this year, they made money.
Look, if you know that about Warner Brothers, and Peter knows that about Warner Brothers, if Peter says, "Cool, I'll go make you a few billion, but you got to give me total control like James Cameron has.
And you got to stay out of my hair while I'm working."
And no love triangles between elves and dwarves anymore.
Yep. No more love triangles being inserted into the Hobbit film in late reshoots or any of that BS. Yeah, you are. I see where you're going with this. I see where you're going.
If Peter gets full control, he's got a good friend in James Cameron who's going to be a citizen. Guys, I think the writing is on the wall. It's all the pieces are coming fit, and you heard Peter in his own words. It's just been amazing, and I'm happy. Cliff, remember when I first listened to this and I called you? I'm like, we have to do a show on this. Like,
and I'm like, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Did this inspire you? Did what you hear today blow your mind as much as it did me?
Yes, I am. I am very, very excited about Peter using this technology to bring certainly more of Christopher Lee back to Middle Earth or any other creative pursuits like that. But there's a lot of other lost media that can be recovered, and that's including music, film, television. Fascinating what they could do. Um, there's a conversation going on right now about Embracer Group holding the rights for motion picture film production for Middle Earth
No,
stories.
it's Warner Brothers has it now.
Okay. And well, Kathy was asking if those were part of the rights that were originally sold to Saul Zentz,
Yes.
which were renewed by Warner Brothers. That's right. So
Yes.
yeah, they renewed that stuff. They did. They renewed it. So all
and
television.
Everybody is very happy. Embracer, Warner Brothers, Middle Earth
Yeah.
Enterprises, the Tolkien estate.
Oh yeah, they're very happy. Yeah.
Everybody is very happy of how things sit right now.
Yes. And
so
the T-Rop stuff, the Rings of Power, is a whole separate deal.
It's a whole island on their own.
On the other side of town. Yeah, a whole separate deal.
Oh man,
So,
imagine the outtakes of
I'm
Ian
excited
Holm
about
as
this.
Bilbo. The outtakes of Ian
Wow.
Holm as Bilbo, cleaning up the
Yeah.
audio and the video. Oh man, Cliff,
Well,
you could tell
how about
there's
that-
a spark in Peter Jackson's eyes of what he
Yes,
can
there
do
is.
with this stuff.
Well, there's a spark in my eye as well when I'm thinking about that Unicorn Edition, that 25th anniversary Unicorn Edition of all of the outtakes and all the extra stuff from the Lord of the Rings trilogy that we've never, ever, ever seen. That much discussed thing, which has never been released. But imagine with the Emmy Awards that Peter has won for doing the 3-part docuseries Get Back. Imagine him doing a big docuseries about the creation of Lord of the Rings and looking at all of that, and it's full retrospective. Imagine him getting Emmy Awards related to his Oscar-winning film
Imagine
trilogy.
the audio cleanup.
I love it.
Imagine the
I love
audio
it.
cleanup he can do from
I love it.
VHS tapes from Costa Botes of some far-off conversation in the background that Vigo's having with Elijah, and we've never been able to understand what they say until now, because now Peter has the audio technology to clean up some really bad VHS tapes from the set of Lord of the Rings. Cliff, you're at where I'm at, which is I think Peter's there too. I think Peter has some projects he wants to get done. So Warner Brothers, give him the Big Jim deal, the Big Jim discount, full creative control of Middle Earth, and let Peter release everything. This has been a wonderful show. Thank you guys for sticking with me as we go through this. Again, this show is a little less than the 3.5 hours of the full podcast, so I recommend going to our YouTube channel and clicking the link in the description to listen to the full. And you can also find it on podcasts, any podcast app that you normally do. It's called Things We Said Today, a Beatles radio show.
That's right. And no, to answer you, Otaku Senpai, the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales are not held by the Embracer Group. From what we understand, that's still completely held by the literary interests of the Tolkien estate, the family Tolkien estate.
Yeah.
So that's
Warner
what we
Brothers
understand
has
about
every word in The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings,
and the Lord of the Rings
appendices.
Yep, that's right. Which is considered the Lord of the Rings as well. Okay, good to have that.
If they see a word in The Hobbit, a passing mention, they can make a movie about it.
That's fascinating to me. Wow. Okay, before we close our show, I think it's important to remind everybody that TheOneRing.net is having a big panel presentation, and our presence will be at Los Angeles Comic-Con this weekend. It starts on Friday, so it'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This is your first weekend of December. Come along if you're ready. In downtown Los Angeles, there are lots of one-day badges available, really inexpensive to get a one-day badge. And at Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m., we'll be doing Tidings from Middle Earth, a new updated slideshow presentation being given by us at TheOneRing.net and going to guide the entire audience through video games, recent book publications, television news, film news, all within the world of J.R.R. Tolkien. So get your news and information at Los Angeles Comic-Con website and get your badge and come and join us on Saturday, December 2nd. It's going to be really exciting. And how about that? Justin, you've brought together a really fascinating conversation. It is very revealing that Peter Jackson would willingly sit down with these guys and just talk so unguardedly and openly about his enthusiasm, this new tech, and how he's working with recreating Beatles songs and working with machine learning. It's really a very brave new frontier. Aren't we walking into some strange days? Yes, I think we are. Fascinating. That was a little James Cameron, Catherine Bigelow reference. I don't know if you caught that. Maybe you did.
I love
maybe you
Strange
didn't.
Days. It's now on HBO
Strange
Max.
Days,
I highly recommend it.
great
It's one
movie.
of the best
It is a great
futuristic cyberpunk movies out there.
Yep.
Strange
Yep.
Days.
And proof that Catherine Bigelow, ex-wife of James Cameron, knew exactly what she was doing the whole time. Highly recommended. Strange Days. Hey, you know what? There's Peter Jackson. We're going to have him on the screen, just to have him with us to say goodbye. Was there any last message from Peter out of this that you wanted to play?
I just want to end the show with the splitting of the audio again. That's it. So thanks for joining us, and we'll leave you with Peter Jackson.
And we'll say good night to everybody and good luck, or as we usually like to say at the end of every show, buenos noches y buena suerte. We'll see you guys next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Peter, take us out.
One of the things, a bit like the drum kit, we've also been playing around with using this software to separate the harmonies. Now, I think there's three-part harmonies on this track. So in other words, there's three Beatles leaning into whether it's their own mic or the same mic, I don't know, but it's all being fed onto the same track. So we've been trying to work out how we can separate the voices, which is very difficult. And this is I'll play you what it sounds like. It's not absolutely perfect yet, but it's worth a listen because it's getting there. To actually go into those harmonies and just pull them apart into their component pieces. It's quite fun to guess who's who. I mean, this is clearly John's track. This is John's, I would imagine, and then I'm not sure about George and Paul. I'll play them and you can see. So this is John.
Got a good reason for taking the easy way out. Got a good reason for taking the easy way out now. She was a day tripper, one-way ticket, yeah. It took me so long to find out, and I found out.
So the second vocal track it's either George or Paul. I can't make up my mind because there's three. So there's another one. So this is another, and I know that three of the Beatles come in on the Day Tripper part. It's a three-part harmony, but there's two for a little bit of time here, and then the third one. But this is B, and see if you can figure out which one this is. Sounds like Paul one moment, and then George another moment.
But taking the easy way out. But taking the easy way out now. Day tripper, a one-way ticket, yeah. How long to find out? And I found out.
I'd vote George on that one if I had to. If I was forced to, which I'm not, but anyway, I figured it out. And this is the third vocal track, which is the high end, because they sort of take low, middle, and high. This is the high part of it. Now there might be some silences because sometimes these vocal tracks haven't got anything on them until the moment happens. So forgive me if it's a bit quiet for a moment or two. Let's have a listen. It's coming up in a minute. So this is while
One-way
That's kind of that's that, but that's a 3-part harmony there, and then I mean, I'm just playing it a little bit. There's other sections, but that's that I mean, I don't know, is that Paul or George? Because they really they all have to be it can't be double. They can't be double tracking because in the sense that it's all on one track, originally one vocal track, so they must all be singing at the same time. So it's got to be one or the other. And anyway, that's they trip it. And then just to remind ourselves, this is the new mix that was done. Now this is just coming. I don't know. This is probably going to sound pretty horrible coming through whatever system you're listening to, but it's not the way to hear the new mixes, I can assure you. But this is the end result of Giles having control over each of those individual tracks.
Got a good reason for taking the easy way out. Got a good reason for taking the easy way out now. He was a day tripper, one-way ticket, yeah. It took me so long to find out, and I found out.
I mean, there's also another I played you the separated vocals on track number 4. There was also the vocal track on track 3 that we also separated. I didn't play those because they sound very, quite similar to track number 3. So I didn't bother playing those ones. But there's also those exist. I mean, it sounds like they might be doubling up the vocals. Like double tracking John for a moment in there. I'm not sure. I don't know. My ears are not good enough for this, but other people are experts, and I can only hand it over to them anyway to tell us exactly what happened on this track. But this is sort of what happens. We get 4 tracks from EMI, and we separate them into as many components as we need to